Hey, Larken Rose here. Government has forever played the game of trying to impose victim status on different people to get them to support authoritarian agenda. Now, we have a very obvious, rampant example of that in the US right now, where they're trying to take certain groups, which they declare to be marginalized, whether they are or not, and tell them, you're oppressed and the whole world is against you. And for example, this is a white supremacist country. And so anybody who isn't white, you should be scared and you should be running to government to protect you from the evil white supremacists. Like a white supremacist country in which nobody dares to come out and say white supremacist anything, and appealing to the conscience of a white supremacist country as if a white supremacist country would do anything other than say, screw you, we don't care, yeah, our race is awesome, up yours. Like, if that's what they thought, that's what they would say. So to just make up these examples of oppression and injustice and suffering and make victims out of people to a ridiculous degree, because it's not like there aren't individuals doing nasty things. Like, there are white racist assholes, there are black racist assholes. There's lots of people who are assholes in lots of different ways. But to try to convince people to take on the mantle of victim serves the purpose of a political agenda, and that's been forever. You know, Hitler rose to power by telling the Germans, you're all victims, and they kind of were, like the Treaty of Versailles and other things. So it doesn't even matter whether the people actually are being victimized or not. The government doesn't give a crap about that. Whether they have to exaggerate it or make it up, or whether the victimization and injustice is real, those who want political power always want people to be in the victim mindset so that they will run to government. Help, help, we're helpless, we can't do anything without you. Oh, government. Oh, gracious, benevolent overlords, please use your power to make things fair and just. And so this breeds a mentality among people that is as disempowering as you can possibly get, which is the notion that nothing is ever your fault and nothing is ever your responsibility, and you can't possibly do anything about it. Like, not that long after, well, racism turned into forced segregation, not that long after it, there was still plenty of just overt, really nasty racism, some of it like outright violent. And incidentally, that's mainly the kind I care about, because if somebody just sits around going, like black people, okay, whoop-de-doo. If you're not attacking them, I don't care that much. Like, and if they apply for a job with somebody who's like, I don't hire black people, well, you probably didn't want to work for that guy anyway. Yeah, it's obnoxious, but that's not the biggest problem you're going to face in life. But if they're actually violent, yeah, that's really bad. And I was all in favor of, when Malcolm X got over being racist himself, which took a while, I was all in favor of his calls for black Americans to arm themselves and get ready to defend yourselves against the law enforcers. And he explained very eloquently and very well why, like, we own ourselves. If this is the land of the free, we have the right to defend ourselves against tyrannical, power-happy bastards. Absolutely. Good freaking job. But to play the victim game as if there's nothing you can do about it. So Malcolm X was pointing out, like, injustices that were real, and a bunch of them that were violent, like actual real threats, but his message wasn't, so vote for me. His message is, here's a problem, it's a real threat to some real people. We, the potential victims of that, need to figure out what to do to stop it, including arm yourselves and get ready to defend yourselves and speak out and get other people to stand up with you and all that stuff. His message was empowering because he wasn't playing the game of, for example, I'll offend some people. I like offending people. Martin Luther King Jr., who basically took the passive approach of, well, we'll just let them beat us up and hopefully the world will see. Now, you can talk about the strategy and the tactics and the ethics involved in that, but Malcolm X bashed Martin Luther King Jr. for basically telling the American Negro to bow and kiss the boots of the people tromping on them. Malcolm X was like, no, we have no obligation to put up with that crap. We don't have an obligation to wait around until they decide to be nice to us. So his was an empowering message to the people who were being victimized by something nasty, instead of a let's beg government and whine to people in power for them to fix it. And that is what government always wants. That's what every political agenda is in one way or another, telling people you're at risk and only by giving us power can you be safe. Now, right now we have the obvious example of what the left is trying to do, trying to create racism and see it everywhere when it obviously isn't everywhere. But both sides, every side of politics has always done that. And like the political right, we have to be scared of foreigners and scared of Mexicans coming over the border. And the answer is government, 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 and government. What a coincidence. What does the left say? You should be scared of racists and poverty and unfairness. And what's the solution? Government, 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 government. So both of you want authoritarian control over everything. Behavior, economics, everything. You're just using different scare tactics. And the thing is, the mindset and the manipulation and the propaganda is really dang important. And it's important for people to recognize it so they don't fall for it. So, coming right out of segregation, and like you had slavery into forced segregation and then forced integration, but there was actually nasty racism. And it wasn't just against blacks. There was, against Chinese people. There were lots of, and some of it was legalized. There were laws saying you're not allowed to do this if you're Chinese. And in fact, the first immigration law in the U.S., the first thing like a border control, was saying Chinese people aren't allowed to come here. It's like, bring us your huddled masses, unless they're from China, then screw you. So that was the beginning of American federal border controls. There wasn't any before that. And by the way, there's nothing in the Constitution authorizing that at all. But that's an aside. But coming right out of that, where there was actual racism, like overt, obvious, and violent in a number of cases, the victims of that, most of them were smart enough to not look to government because they already knew government was like legalizing this abuse and legalizing like tromping on them. And the mostly white unions were going to government to pass laws to keep blacks out of various industries, to keep Chinese out of various industries. They were using the force of government. So these people who were actually being victimized and mistreated, like violently, not just people are saying mean words to you, but like violently, openly oppressed, they figured out, all right, well, we're in this situation. It sucks. It's not good. It's not our fault. But we're not going to sit on our butts whining about it because that doesn't fix it. So they worked their butts off. And they built wealth. They built their families. They built their little societies in a really harsh setting. And the thing is, human beings have done that in a lot of places all over the world for thousands and thousands of years. Whether it's like the natural area is just really difficult to live in, or there's invaders, or there's a tyrant king doing these nasty things. It's like, we're going to work together and just be us, the people, and get together and find a way to move forward, find a way to progress. And the amount of progress among Black Americans, for example, when racism was just undeniable and openly violent in a number of cases and had the blessing of the government like all over the place, including the Democrats. Like the Democrats were mainly the ones that the unions were going to make sure black people couldn't get work and couldn't get a job. Like that was the Democrats doing that. Not that it makes any difference because they're both just two sets of parasites, but it wasn't like, oh, there were the righteous Democrats standing up. No, there weren't. The machine was stomping on these people, so these people had no disillusions about, let's ask the machine to save us. The machine doesn't give a crap about you. Well, now, the machine still doesn't give a crap about them. If you're black, the politicians don't give a shit what happens to you. If you die in a ditch, they couldn't possibly care less. Every single word they say to you, every word, every tear they pretend to shed, every outrage they feign, about some imaginary racism somewhere, none of it has anything to do with giving a crap about you. They just think they can trick you into adopting the victim mindset and giving them power because you feel powerless and you want them and their political monstrosity to save you. And often you see the insulting nature of it, like the whole affirmative action thing that just came up again when the Supreme Court threw it out. Government saying, yeah, we're going to make people hire more black people, for example. A bit of an oversimplification, but it basically does that. Okay, what does that tell black people? Obviously, you can't get by on your own. Like, that would just be hopeless. You need a handout. You need a helping hand from government violence for you to stand any chance of competing in this world. Nothing could be more insulting and racist than that. And that is the message of Democrats. Adopt the victim mindset and stay there. And when some black people, and it's happening more and more, start to figure out, yeah, nasty things have happened to us, especially historically, but we don't really think you Democrats give a crap about that. We just think you're assuming we're going to help put you in power again, and so you can be elitist jackasses again. We don't really think you give a crap about us. Maybe we need to figure it out and work hard and focus on having families that stay together and being successful and build ourselves up instead of waiting around for frickin' politicians to do it. What happens when black Americans do that? The political left just attacks. How dare you not have the victim mindset? And it doesn't even matter if you really are a victim. Because if you really are a victim and bad things are happening, it doesn't help to just curl up in a corner and go, it's hopeless, people are mean. Okay, people are mean, you might have to work way harder, like the Chinese did, like black people did in this country, coming out of segregation. Yeah, it was really freaking hard. And they did it. And it's not that they had no right to object or shouldn't have objected. It's that those in government want you to object and then just sit down and give up and wait for government to save you. As if that's ever going to happen. As if they even want that to happen. Their power relies on every group of people having the victim mentality status, including the political right. You have to be scared of those foreigners and Muslims and stuff and brown people and Mexicans and stuff. Be scared of them and then give us lots of money and we'll build a big military and a big wall down there. And we'll have huge police forces, rah, 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 for law enforcement. Be scared. But if you're not scared, why would you bother with that? If you have the mentality of, okay, some people are mean, some people are bad, some of the bad people are brown, some of them are white, who gives a crap? We, the normal people, better be ready to defend ourselves, so we should be armed. It's good if you know your neighbors, maybe even have an organized thing where you have you know who to call in times of trouble. Like if, little old lady hears someone breaking into her house, she knows her neighbors, she knows which ones are armed and know how to fight, and she gives them a call and they come running over. The people dealing with the problems. Whether the problems are really, really bad or not that bad, but hugely exaggerated by government, or something in between, it doesn't change the fact that the solution is never victim mentality followed by whining to government. And that is the only mentality that any political parasite is ever going to accept. And right now you see the left doing it to just a ridiculous, obvious degree. Where pick any one of their stupid collectivist authoritarian policies, and if you're against it, you're a racist. Even if it has absolutely nothing to do with race or anything like that. Oh, I think if you didn't want to be forced to wear a thing that didn't actually do any good, it's probably because you're racist. Everybody's a racist that I don't like. Them playing that game to just a laughably stupid degree. But it all boils down to they hate anyone who isn't in victim mentality mode. And so does the political right. They just have different things they want you to be scared of and different things they want you feeling helpless about. But they both do it because nobody could get political power without doing that. Because what's the alternative? A political party that comes along and says, hey, you guys are doing fine. Yeah, there's some problems, but you guys can handle it. You're taking care of each other. Progress and working hard and caring for each other and taking care of each other. Good job. Now give me power over you. When would that ever work? Never. They have to come along and say, there are problems you mere peasants can't possibly handle. So you need to give me the money and the resources and the hired thugs to fix all these problems for you, because you can't, you stupid rabble, you helpless idiots. You can't possibly get along. You're just dumb, violent animals, and without the good graces of your betters, your noble leaders in government, you'd just be savages. You need us in charge to help you. That message is never the result of those people giving a crap about you. If someone, and you can sometimes see this on an individual basis. Like, there are people who help the poor and help the less fortunate because they want to help them out and they want to see them back on their feet. And then there's some people, even individuals, who like the feeling of someone else being dependent upon them. And people do this with their own kids. You shouldn't have to do anything yourself, no risk, and I'll give you everything you want as long as you praise me and stay stuck in my trap. Very frickin' unhealthy relationship, and that is a relationship of every government in the world, in the history of the world, to every citizen they claim the right to rule. That is always the relationship. You can't get by without us having power over you. That is always the message of government. Every candidate, every political party, they may give lip service to freedom, yada, yada, yada. If they actually wanted freedom, they wouldn't be trying to achieve a position from which they can dominate and rob you. Duh. I want you to be free. You may notice I'm not trying to acquire a position where I can boss you around, violently control you, and steal your money. I don't want that position because I actually believe in your freedom. Nobody who runs for office wants that. No political campaign, no party will ever do that, because if they did that, there goes all their power. There is no political power without the victim mindset of the peasantry. So they are always pushing the message that you are powerless. You are outnumbered and surrounded and there's nothing you can do. And it's sickening and disgusting to watch. And to me, it's particularly disgusting to watch when they do that to groups who have historically been horribly mistreated. You know, when there was slavery and then forced segregation and really nasty, openly violent racism. And then the same beneficiaries of that evil say, okay, well, we can't get away with doing it that way anymore, but we can tell you, you can't get ahead, everything's doomed, without us giving you free education and free housing and a welfare check and taking care and protecting you from all those meanie white supremacists who are everywhere, even though none of them ever dare to say anything, and they all, for some reason, act like they're not that. But no, don't. You have to always be scared, always feel scared, always feel helpless, and then come to us and ask us to use our power. Oh, did we mention we need you to give us a bunch of power? Our power to save you and make your life worth living. That is a despicable message to send to anybody, including someone who's actually the victim of injustice. Because if you point out an injustice and then say, so the result is you should let me dominate you, ew, you're just a slimeball. And anybody who does that, anybody who points out why you've been mistreated, whether they're just making it up, whether it's completely true, whether it's somewhere in between and they're exaggerating, anybody who points out injustice, okay, so far so good. If they then step into, this is why you need to put us in power, they don't give a shit about you, and they never have, and they never will. Because people who care about you, their agenda is not going to include trying to acquire the ability to violently dominate you and control your life. And that is what every political candidate and every political party is always about. And they can't ever do that without getting people, for one reason or another, into the victim mindset and convincing you that not only is nothing ever your fault, but also there's nothing you can ever do about it without us, the ruling elite, making things fair for you, which, coincidentally, will require us having lots of power and money and control and influence over everything. What a coincidence. So, it may sound kind of weird, but the more you've actually been victimized, the harder you're going to need to try to not fall into the victim mentality. Even if you really were a victim, even if you really are being mistreated. Yeah, you can recognize it. You can say it's wrong. And then you and normal people around you have to find a way out of that. Because the moment you look to government to save you from victim status, you're going from victim status to slave status. And that is not an improvement.